Hi, welcome to my channel, Patrick Cat's Place. I'm Gina. I'm going to start reviewing some of my new books. They're starting to pile up again, so I thought I'd better get stuck into it. This first one is called Elvis Remembered, and it's by Shelly Powers. Shelly introduces herself as a lady who was an Elvis fan from a very young age, and she ended up in Las Vegas and marrying an Elvis impersonator, and through the connections she got to meet a lot of Elvis's entourage and friends and people that knew him really well, and she conducted interviews and she's written this book. The photos are fabulous. The interviews are, she says, word for word. In fact, there's an interview with her on YouTube on the Two Elvis Girls channel. And she goes through the book and how she felt, how she got on with the people that she was interviewing and so on. Very interesting. So just the interviews are with Jerry Schilling, Cynthia Pepper, Patty Parry, Ed Bonger, Sonny West, Joe Esposito, Mna Smith, Darlene Tomkins, Jimmy Velvet and Larry Geller. So I'll just flip through and the pages and you can see, as I say, that the photos are absolutely brilliant. And comment on anything I think's worth commenting. So she does a write-up about the person she's interviewing, in this case Jerry Schilling, and she's got photos that were taken at the interview. Let's see. And she mentions, when they've written a book about Elvis, their own book, she mentions that book, Jerry Schilling's book. So each interview probably goes for 10 pages or so on. It's funny how the different people she's interviewed has different perceptions of people that Elvis was with. For instance, Colonel Parker and Jerry, he was a gentleman. He was a gentleman in disguise. The Colonel was a gentleman. He was honest and he was brilliant. And then you've got other people, of course, they couldn't stand him. So the court, what do I say, the court is still out on that. the jury's still out. Okay, what have we got here? Yeah, so a lot of different photos and different times in their generation. Their time with Elvis. Elvis remember, and then at the end of each chapter she has a quote from somebody else unrelated to the book. In this case, Paul McCartney. Elvis is a truly great vocalist. You can hear why on this song. His phrasing, his use of echo, it's all so beautiful. It's the way he sings it too, as if he's singing it from the depths of hell. It's a perfect example of a singer being in command of a song, and that's Paul McCartney singing Heartbreak Hotel. And I've always thought that too, that when he sings it, Elvis sounds like he's in the depths of hell. That's a very good description. Okay, the next chapter is about Cynthia Pepper, who's that gorgeous little girl from Kissin' Cousins. And she just gives a great interview. She just adored Elvis and, yeah, all sorts of things. There were certain things that she wouldn't talk about, like how close did she get to Elvis. He wasn't going to mention that. But they certainly got within kissing. They were kissing cousins. So, yeah, beautiful interview. Nice lady. Yeah, she says, Elvis, I saw him as someone who was beautiful but didn't flaunt it and didn't act like the big man. He knew who he was, but he didn't flaunt it. That's right, isn't it? Elvis was perfectly aware of his attraction, but he didn't throw it at people. Well, this is really funny. Tell me, the interviewer, Shelly, says, tell me a little bit more about the kissing. How did you contain yourself? And Cynthia says, well, like I said before, I contained myself as much as I could without getting fired. I wanted to kiss him, and he did have soft lips. In those days, they kissed nice. I don't know if it's in that one or not. There's somewhere else there, someone they interviewed, and she said they kept on getting the scene wrong deliberately, so they keep on kissing. The Elvis was playing along with it. I can imagine that. Okay, Neil Diamond says, I never saw Elvis perform Sweet Caroline. I did see him perform live in Las Vegas. I'd never seen him before, He was Elvis Presley and I was awed. He was amazing live performer. And it goes on a bit more. Patty Parry, now this lady said she spent 17 years being a little sister to Elvis and sometimes noted as being the only female member of the Mafia, Memphis Mafia. Well, reading through this interview, I haven't got a very good impression of her, I'm afraid. She was one of a small number of girls who hung out with Elvis and the guys for many years. Now, when you see photos of the Memphis Mafia with Elvis, the guy, she's never in it, so she wasn't. She was just a woman that hung around with them. I think this girl's got tickets on herself. Yeah, she goes up. She was Elvis's hairdresser, and then, as Shelly said, well, wasn't Larry Geller. Oh yes, well Larry Geller was his hairdresser, but I cut his hair when Elvis wasn't there. Right. Yes, he kisses. Yes, he kissed me, and so on. Elvis is wonderful. Rah rah rah. Steve Binder. There's a bit in here that I was not impressed with at all. Oh, it's a cat. Tiger. Stop it. Stop it. Shelly said, what do you think of Dodger, Elvis's grandmother? Did you spend much time with her? Nah, Dodger was an old lady. I spent time with, what's her name? Aunt Delta. Yeah, really respectful. She was an old lady. Yeah, okay. Yeah, where are we? She spoke about Priscilla quite a bit, said she was great, got on with Priscilla. And then Shelly asked Patty about Linda Thompson. How was your relationship with Linda? Had a great relationship with Linda. She was a wonderful lady, a terrific girl. She married an idiot. Yeah, okay, right. And then Shelly said, we know Elvis gave Ginger Alden a huge diamond ring. And Patty Perry says, who? Who? I don't acknowledge that woman. I don't acknowledge it. Don't want to know her. No. And then she says, I was just wondering if Elvis would have married her. She was there. She should have kept him alive. I don't acknowledge her. Now, to me, that if she was a so-called friend of Elvis, that was totally disrespectful. Ginger Alden was the girl that Elvis picked out at that time in his life to be with. I can just imagine this Patty Perry was probably pretty nasty to her, because Ginger did say in a book that, some of the Mafia, men and women, were pretty nasty to her. So, yeah, I'm sorry I haven't got any time for that Patty Perry. I don't care how good she says she was, a close friend of Elvis. Bullshit. I think she was just a tart hanging on, I think. Sorry. Okay, Elvis remembered Roy Orbison. His energy was incredible. His instinct was just amazing. I didn't know what to make of it. There was just no reference point in the culture to compare it. Good on you, Roy. Okay, the next interview is Mna. I think, or was it? Let me see. Oh, no, still stupid Perry. Okay. Elvis remembered when I first heard Heartbreak Hotel, my whole life changed. I was completely shaken by it. I thought, this is it, and I started to trying to grow sideburns and all that. That was John Lennon saying that. Without Elvis, there would be no Beatles. Okay, Ed Bonger. Okay, Elvis's Elvis's personal photographer. I mean, there's a lot of guys running around saying they're Elvis's personal photographer. Sean Shaver, Ed Bonger, and George Willis, whoever he is, and yeah. Anyway, they're all photographers. Oh, except, of course, Ed Bonger was, I think, he was Colonel Parker's nephew, I think. Something like that. Okay, yeah. They certainly took some good photos. My whole life was the Elvis Presley show. Okay. Yeah, he's some relation to the Colonel. Yeah. Yeah, he certainly took some good photos. Elvis and Johnny Cash. He had so many girls after him that whenever he was working with us, there were always plenty left over. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun in general, but not just with the girls. It was nice that we could make a living at it. Every one of us would have done it for free. And as you know, Elvis was so good. Every show I did with him, I never missed the chance to stand in the wings and watch. We all did. He was that charismatic. Sonny West. Okay. That's a good interview too. Shelly, the right author, said, on meeting Sonny for the first time, I couldn't help but warm to him instantly. I kept an open mind always, and I felt satisfied in the knowledge that Sonny was the genuine article. I saw her and heard nothing that would make me think otherwise. So people had, you know, bad impressions of Sonny because of the book. But it's a long story, isn't it? A long, long story. Yeah, there they all, the Mafia. With a lot of good quotes in it, as well as a lot of good photos. Muhammad Ali. So Elvis and Priscilla and Sonny West and his new wife. The two books. Paul McCartney again says something else about Elvis, and we've got Elvis and Sammy Davis Jr. There's a quote from Sammy Davis. So who's this? Oh yeah, this is still the interview with Sonny West. Now it's Priscilla. Muhammad Ali, what he said about Elvis. This is still the interview with Sonny West. Tiger, shut up. Cat's driving me mad, wants to go out. Elvis remembered. Angela Lansbury. Angela Lansbury. I was awed by being in the presence, but he was an awfully nice young man in those days. He was always a wonderfully nice young man, very caring person. Yeah, she's a few more things. Joe Esposito. Yep. Okay. Interviewing Joe. How they met in the army. He said, hi, I'm Elvis Presley, and I said, I'm Joe Esposito. That was strange for Elvis to come up to him and say, I'm Elvis Presley, like I didn't know who he was. Barely did that all the time. Funny guy. Okay, more photos of Joe. Oh, that's a nice photo of Elvis, isn't it? In the army. Another good one. That's a nice one too. Ginger, Elvis and Joe. Yeah. Talks about Priscilla and the wedding and marriage and why it didn't work, or why he thinks it didn't work. As he said, nearly all of them, none of the marriages worked when they were out on the road. Tiger! Shut up. Mafia again. Oh, it's got Colonel Parker in it. Okay. Elvis looking at a lamp. That's another good shot of Elvis and Joe, isn't it? I hope you can see these. I'm not quite sure which way to tilt this. If I tilted the camera too high, it gets glary. Okay. Two things. Beautiful photos. Beautiful book. Glossy pages. And Joe says, over 30 years, well, this, when this interview was done, 30 years he's been gone. The guy grossed $50 million last year, and he's been gone 30 years. Now you tell me about another star, another human being who has had that kind of effect on the public like he did. Nobody, and nobody will ever have it again. Dead right, mate. Raquel Welch. She has a little bit about Elvis. Yeah. Okay, Mna Smith. Interview with Myrna. And, yeah, I'm not quite sure about here. Let's see. Al, tell me about your first encounter with Elvis. How did that go? We're sitting on the stage. Okay, how you come over and kissed all the sweet inspirations. Oh, Shelly asked her, did you got to spend so much time with him along with the other sweets, and because of the tours and spending all that time with him, did you ever consider dating him yourself? And she said, Myrna said, well, he had plans for that, but I didn't have any. He had plans for us to have a little relationship, but I wasn't going to be a part of it because I knew what Elvis was into, and I didn't happen to be into that, you know. I was married when I met Elvis. See, now I don't believe that because it's commonly known Elvis never approached married women for an affair. So Shelly says, if you hadn't been married, maybe. She said, no, I knew too much about Elvis from what I'd heard. I knew he was not a one-woman man, and I was a one-man woman. When I split up from my husband, I started dating Jerry Shelly. Elvis told Jerry he couldn't date me because he was having me fly down to his pad in Palm Springs, but he hadn't told me all this stuff. He didn't want Jerry dating me, so I suppose because I worked for him. And if there's going to be anything, it had to be him. So they're both competing for me. Yeah, I think Elvis had better things to do rather than chase one of the ladies from Sweet Inspirations. What my boss used to say, don't dip your stick into company. No, don't dip your stick into company business or something. Well, then again, Elvis had an affair with Kathy Westmoreland, so I guess he did. Okay. Mna. Oh, B.B. King. Yeah. Okay. And this is Darlene Tomkins, and she was in Blue Hawaii. So she remained close with Elvis up until his passing. All these people remained close with Elvis up until he died. God, I'd like to have a book of names. You'd never get anything done. Tells how she got the interview and got the job to play with Elvis. I've heard people talk about how humble he was and how modest. That's the author. And Darlene said he really was. He used to say, my gosh, here I am, I should be a truck driver, here I am. He would get the giggles. Yeah. Talking about Elvis and his hands, he had very distinctive hands, didn't he? You instantly recognised Elvis's hands. And Darlene said, yes, he had artist's hands. Beautiful hands, everything about him was beautiful. I've always, I used to notice Elvis's hands, and I wondered if anybody else noticed them, and most fans do. Let me see. Yeah, so she had lots of good little anecdotes about what happened to Blue Hawaii. Elvis always had his bodyguards around him. Did you hang out with any of them? Yes, Joe Esposito and Sonny. Joe Esposito was the one that told me about Priscilla. See, nobody knew that Priscilla was back at the ranch in Graceland. Nobody knew it. Elvis was a flirt. A lot of the girls and I were becoming very, very fond of him, and I was starting to think very seriously about him. Joe happened to be a friend. I enjoyed him very much, and he was a good man and still is. So Joe said, Darlene, I just want you to know that Elvis has somebody back at Graceland. Well, I've always been the type that if somebody has somebody else, then that's it. I'm not interested. Huh. Yeah. Well, she says, I may be interested. There's such a thing as off limits. You wouldn't take it any further, no. Yeah, so great interview. Elvis was easy to work with. Yes, he was. Jimmy Velvet. No, I've heard the name, but I know he was something to do with Elvis, but I still don't know much about him. He's an American soft rock and roll vocalist from the 1960s. He was friends with all the big entertainment names of the era, and a close friend of Elvis for 22 years. Jimmy was respected by Elvis, and following Elvis's death, Jimmy opened the Elvis Memorabilia Museum close to Graceland, which stayed open for more than almost 20 years. Alright, okay, so Jimmy's. Talked about Gladys, he knew Gladys. That's a lovely photo. Yeah, so she's saying a lot about Elvis's family in the early days. Vernon, she knew very close to Vernon. Let's see, Ray. Something about the jumpsuits, very Delta. Did you ever meet Natalie Wood? Yes, I did. Did Elvis having a crush on her? I don't know. And this is interesting. What about Priscilla? Did you have many dealings with Priscilla? I didn't have a lot of dealings with Priscilla. I had a couple. I had 207 Polaroid photos of Lisa growing up, and I offered them to Lisa when she was about 15, and she was like, oh no, she wasn't that interested. So that was the end of that. She must have been going through that teenage thing, Shelly said. So Jimmy Velvet said, well, I put them all in a bag and handed them to Jack Soden, and said, I want you to give all these to Priscilla. Yeah, well, she got them because I've seen them come up in all kinds of TV shows, the pictures, but those photos were mine. And Shelly said, did she ever approach you about those pictures? And Jimmy said, no, not a word. She never said thank you or anything. But that's okay, I'm used to it. Yeah, and then at one time he was sitting next to Colonel's birthday party. And she said to me, well, I hear you're on our side now. Funny thing to say. Funny thing to say. And Shelley said, she's always done so much for Elvis's memory. And Jimmy Velvet said, yeah, well, good for her. Because he did good for her too. And he really took good care of her before and after. Yeah. So I don't think he's too impressed. Interesting. So, okie doke, more Jimmy's memories. Nick Cave. Who was Nick Cave? He's an actor, wasn't he, I think? You know. Crucified himself later years, I never said. That's interesting. Yep. Another good photo. Yeah, there's some really good photos. Larry Geller. Yep. Yeah, it's good. I wasn't sure what to expect when I was granted an interview with Larry. I had mixed opinions about his influence on Elvis as his hairdresser, friend and spiritual guru. During our few hours together, I found Larry to be overall a very gentle soul, the exception being when he expressed his feelings regarding untruths that were told about Elvis after his passing. Larry became extremely passionate and vocal about defending Elvis's good name, but that just shows the genuine love and respect he had for his friend, and I believe that. I've got one of his books and I'd like to get the others, but they're very, very hard to get hold of. What Larry says about Elvis, he had the eyes, he had the perfect nose, the lips were famous, he had the voice, the charisma, he had the fans, the fame, the money, he had the soul. He was a perfect package. Yeah. So, Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, two of the many celebrities that Larry encountered. Yeah, did a lot of movie stars here, that's for sure. Yeah. And Larry describes how Elvis opened up to him. He said, "Larry, there has to be a reason why I was plucked out of all the millions and millions of people living to be Elvis. There has to be a reason. There's got to be. I've always known it. I've always felt this unseen hand guiding my life ever since I was a little kid. Man, you have no idea what poverty is all about. Trust me, man, trust me, where I came from and what my family and I had to go through." And that's where I think most, if not all, of Elvis's girlfriends, and probably a lot of the later Memphis Mafia, didn't understand about Elvis. And I'll leave it at that. Yeah. Got a bit of text, a few more photos. Colonel Parker. Why do you think it took him so long to realise the truth about Colonel Parker? It wasn't just Colonel Parker, it was Elvis's life in total. It was the complete thing. He was going through an inner revolution and lots of things emerged. His romantic life, the people around him who felt he had outgrown. His lifestyle, he just didn't want to tour anymore. He loved singing, he just didn't want to tour anymore. He wanted to be an actor. He said, "Larry, here's what's going to happen. A, B, C, D and E, they're gone, that's it. I've carried a lot of these guys for too long. I'm only going to keep 2 or 3 people and we're going to go Hawaii for a year and I'm going to get on a diet and we're going to exercise every day. I know it's not going to be easy, but I know I can do whatever I put my mind to. I'm going to uncharted waters. I'm going to get off these effing pills. I don't want doctors anymore and we're going back to Hollywood. I'm not going to make movies as an actor and I'm going to find a new manager. I would really like Tom Hewitt to be my manager." Tom Hewitt was Jerry Weintraub's partner. They were the promoters of Elvis's concerts. Yeah, interesting. And he said, where is he? "I'm going to do it. This is it. My life is on the line. I know it's at stake and I'm going to do it. Only I'm going to do it in September. My contracts are signed and I can't disappoint my fans." I bring this out in the book because right now the crux of the tragedy of Elvis's life, because his life was magnificent, his life was over the top, a fantasy come true, and it ended tragically because he realised what he had to do to keep it going, to go on and to achieve greater vistas. He procrastinated. He didn't pick up the phone and say, "Colonel, adios, you're out of here." He didn't tell A, B, C, D and E, "I'm sorry, I have to let you guys go." He didn't call Elwin, the pilot, and say, "Crank up the plane, let's get our asses to Hawaii tomorrow." Because he thought he had contracts until September, and he did. He didn't take the power that was really his all along. Yeah, it was difficult for Elvis to say no to anyone, very difficult. He didn't want to hurt anyone. He was such a good guy. Yeah, no, Larry, yeah, it's got that's one guy I'd love to meet. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, as I said, the interviews are just brilliant, as she writes. They're word for word, exactly as they were said. And in the back, she's got a collage of fan photos. That's really interesting. If you'd like to see your own photograph featured in a future edition of this book, send a pic to me at shellypowersfanpage@gmail.com. And you'll be one of the lucky ones to select to share space with the king. Elvis often asked the question, "Who's going to remember me?" Well, quite simply, Elvis, everyone remembers you. Yeah. So, I recommend that book. Thoroughly recommend it, actually. What's on the back of it? Anything? Oh, yeah, just a write-up about it. So, anyway, that's gone for, 29 minutes. That's long enough. I've got another book to do, but I'll recharge the camera and do another video on the other book. Thanks for watching. Bye.